In episode 6 of Wood Academy TV, we complete our dining room chair set. And we use pocket screws pretty extensively in the assembly of the main frame. But we also put a couple to hold the lower rails as well. Now these are facing down to the floor, so strictly speaking, they don't need to be filled or hidden. But if you want to, there's 3 easy ways to do that. Conveniently, Kreg sells an assortment of pre-made plugs that you can use. These are molded plastic for use with laminates or melamine, and they sell wood plugs in both oak and paint grade. You can also make your own from scrap wood left over from your project. This guarantees that the plugs will more closely match the material you used in your project, and also allows you to make the plugs in whatever material your project happens to be. Now I've had this tenon cutting set for many years now, and it comes with 3/8, half, 5/8, 3/4, and 1-inch plug cutters that actually cut a very nice plug and can be up to 2.5 or 3 inches long. So I use them for making my dowels in construction projects. I use them for cutting tenons on the end of round pieces, all sorts of things. And these create very nice 3/8 inch dowel segments that I can use for plugs for my pocket screw holes. And then last year, Kreg came out with their new plug cutting kit. This allows you to make your own plugs from whatever material you need to make them from. So they can be contrasting or they can be the same as the wood you're using, whatever you want to do. So let's take a look at how both of these sets work, and you can decide which one works best for you. Even in a simple task like this one, stock choice is important. If you're trying to match the plug to the project, then you want to ensure that the grain pattern and color of the scrap you're going to use to make your plugs from matches your project as closely as possible. But in either case, you want wood that doesn't have any defects or voids. In a 3/8 inch dowel, any knot or defect within the dowel is going to seriously weaken it. And so you need to make sure that you've got clear wood to work with. Also, typically we'd take a piece like this and the first thing we'd think of is boring down this way because that's the orientation we tend to think about with woodworking. But that's not going to work because then the grain is going across the dowel and not along the dowel, and that will make it basically useless. You'll be able to just snap them in half. And so what I'm going to do is cross-cut this piece into sections so that I can work this way with the grain. And this is true with either the Kreg system or with the tenon cutters. I'm using the 3/8 tenon cutter mounted in my drill press. A lower RPM works better and keeps the cutters cooler, and note the use of a wood hand screw clamp to hold the part perpendicular to the table. A fence is then set on the bandsaw to cut the parts to the proper length. The Kreg plug cutting kit comes with a guide that can be used on its own, but can also be attached to any of the Kreg jigs, the K3, 4, or 5. And Kreg even makes plug cutters for the HD and micro sizes, but we'll be using the standard 3/8. Once fitted, everything else is just like drilling pocket screw holes. Because the workpiece is relatively small, and the plug cutter is pretty aggressive, I did find it useful to keep a hand on the part while drilling the plugs. And with one drill position in the jig, the part has to be repositioned for each new plug being cut. But this system allows for making a lot of plugs very quickly and very accurately. Cutting the Kreg plugs from the blank requires a little more setup than the tenon cutters. The fence is set at 3/16 from the blade, and the table tilted to 15 degrees. But the results are exactly like the plugs Kreg sells. Bought plugs, or shop-made, they all set the same way. A little glue spread on the lower part of the plug that's going into the hole, Then just slide it in as far as it'll go. The tenon cutter plugs are actually just short sections of dowel, so a saw is used to remove the excess. And then, whatever plugs you're using can be smoothed over using a sharp chisel or sandpaper. Whichever method you choose for your shop, plugging the pocket screw holes gives your project a clean, finished look. You can find more ways to build your skills at www.woodcademy.com.